All right, let's talk about a number you see all the time on your CMAs, that confidence range. We're going to pull back the curtain on what that percentage really is, and more importantly, what's the math actually powering it?
So picture this. Your CMA says there's an 8% confidence range. Okay, but what does that actually mean?
And I'm not talking about, the script you use to explain it to your clients. I mean, what is really happening under the hood? What's going on in the raw data to spit out that exact number? Well, let's dive in and find out.
See, that percentage, it's not just a suggestion. Think of it more like a diagnostic result. It's a calculated output, and it's based on 4 key drivers that we're about to break down.
Okay, so you can think of these 4 things as the pillars holding up your pricing certainty. We've got the number of comps, how recent they are, how similar they are to your property, and of course, how stable the market's been. Let's break them down one by one.
First up, comp count. Now, this one's pretty straightforward, right? The more data points you have, the more confident you can be in the trend. It makes sense. Fewer comps, well, that means less certainty. In fact, just taking away one comp from your pool usually widens that confidence range by 2 to 3 percentage points. It's a really direct relationship. Next, we've got recency. I mean, a sale from 2 months ago is obviously a much, much stronger signal of today's value than one from 9 months ago. That older data, it introduces a lot of guesswork about what's happened in the market since then. So the model has no choice but to widen that range to account for all that uncertainty.
All right, number 3 is similarity. This is your classic apples-to-apples comparison. If your comps are all over the place, different square footage, condition, key features, your valuation suddenly has way more variables. Every single one of those differences introduces what you could call statistical noise, and that forces the range wider to cover that uncertainty.
And finally, we have market stability, and this is a big one. Just think about it for a second. If prices have been totally flat for 6 months, your old comps are pretty reliable. But what if there was a sudden price correction 3 months ago? Uh-oh. Suddenly, all the data from before that big shift is way less trustworthy. That kind of volatility forces the range to get wider, simply because the past isn't a clear guide to the present anymore.
So, there you have it. Those are the 4 big inputs that build the range. Now let's see how they all come together in the real world. We're going to look at 3 scenarios I know you've all seen: a 5%, an 8%, and a 12% range.
Okay, first up, the 5%er. This is the dream scenario, right? This is what high confidence looks like.
So what does the data behind a tiny 5% range actually look like? Well, you've got a really healthy number of comps, let's say 6 of them. They are all super recent, all within the last few months. They're also highly similar in size, features, you name it. And on top of all that, the market has been perfectly steady. The data points are basically all pointing to the exact same value. The message here is, well, it's unmistakable. The evidence is strong. The market has spoken, and it has spoken clearly. Your job here is to present that price with the exact same high degree of confidence that the data is giving you. Okay, now for the one we see most often, the 8% range. This is what moderate confidence looks like, and frankly, this is where your professional skill really gets to shine. So what's different this time? Well, for starters, the comp pool is a bit thinner. Maybe you only have 4 sales instead of 6. They're a little bit older too, maybe spanning the last 7 months. And there's more variation in the properties themselves. They aren't those perfect matches we just saw. The market's still stable, but the comps themselves are just a little more spread out. Now, the crucial thing to get here is that an 8% range is not a sign of weak analysis. Not at all. It's an accurate reflection of the data you actually have. It's telling you, hey, there's a clear trend here, but there's also a reasonable and quantifiable level of uncertainty because of the differences in the comps. And finally, let's tackle the 12% range. This signals lower confidence for sure, and it is absolutely critical to understand why. In this situation, the data is sparse and it's challenging. You might only have 2 comps to work with. Maybe they're 9 months apart. And here's the kicker, the market wasn't stable. It went through a price correction right in the middle of that period. So your data is not just limited, it's also shifted.
Look, a 12% range is not a failure. It's an honest, responsible report of the facts on the ground. It communicates that, yes, we can establish a framework for value, but suggesting one single precise number would just be irresponsible given all the major variables in play.
Okay, so we've been deep in the weeds with the data. So what? Why does any of this matter? It matters because when you can explain the methodology behind the number, not just the number itself, you build this incredible foundation of professional rigor and, most importantly, client trust.
And the proof is right there in the performance. The data shows that properties priced inside their calculated confidence range sell 2.4 times faster than properties priced outside of it. I mean, come on, this methodology just plain works.
And here's the real payoff for your business. When you can explain the why behind the range right up front, agents see 29% fewer requests for those, painful mid-listing price changes. You're setting expectations based on data, not just plucking a number out of thin air. This is the key takeaway. When you really get what drives that range, you're no longer just some person presenting a price. You become an expert diagnostician, able to explain the health and the clarity of the market data itself.
This deep understanding, it's really what separates the pros. It's about owning the entire analysis, not just showing up with the conclusion. So, in the end, it all comes down to this. The range is the methodology. It tells the story of the data. Now, a tool like CMAflow can run the calculation for you based on all these inputs, but you, the professional, you're the one who explains that story. And that combination, that mix of precise calculation and expert interpretation, that is what professional valuation is all about.